they have a lot of hopes, and they thought last year they were turning the corner. Even early this year, they start turning the corner, and then you lose 13 games in a row.
Edmonton chipped away, got a late goal, won the game 4-3. I felt like they dominated the third period. They moved the puck on that power play. It was an exceptional hockey game. It went over the total.
Only on SportsGrid.
This guy Ovechkin, how he was injured and missed all that time, and the fact that he's still on pace to pass Gretzky.
I think everybody's rooting for Ovechkin at this point in time, and I think he'll do it as well. So it's a feat that no one ever thought Scotty would be broken. It's going to be broken, and it's probably going to be broken because he's not going to stop shooting.
Pharrell, coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Can we get to that AFC and NFC championship as we creep closer? We will preview the games today. Brady Kannon will join us. Of course, we'll talk a little golf as another one of the big tournaments is underway already. In addition, of course, we've got guest contributors today from Sporting News and always Legal Sports Report, so stay on the grid for that. Also, the latest in college basketball, some NBA news and some rumors. Trade talk again happening with Miami. We'll see if that ends up progressing anywhere, and some news in the NFL as far as some of the coaching and general manager positions are concerned. So let's start there, because yesterday when we were here on the show, we talked about Liam Cohen. If you don't know who he is, you're not alone. Offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, re-upping with the Bucs and not going to Jacksonville. A short time later, we found out that the owner of the Jaguars, Shad Khan, fired the Jaguars general manager. His name is Trent Baalke. He is out. Don't know if the two things are correlated. A lot of people are speculating they are. Baalke certainly has had a lot of success in drafting, but not a lot of success with wins and losses. So the Jaguars are now searching for another general manager and a head coach. And this is, of course, ahead of the NFL draft coming up in April. Meanwhile, the New York Jets have hired their next head coach, and Jets fans will be familiar with him. Defensive back Aaron Glenn is headed home. He's going to be the head coach of the Jets. He leaves after a stellar run with the Detroit Lions, and so another coaching vacancy has been filled. Glenn did a fantastic job with the Lions defense over the years, although you probably would say that injuries really derailed them at the end of the year. Glenn, a defensive specialist, although he says he's a coach regardless. The Las Vegas Raiders have a new GM also, and there is some correlation here to one of their limited partners in Tom Brady. His name is John Spytek, not Spygate, Spytek. He is their new general manager. Has that joke been made yet? Hopefully I'm not the first one. He was with Tom Brady back at Michigan in 1999 and also was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers staff a few years ago. And so he will be tasked with hiring the next head coach of the Raiders and also finding a quarterback for the Raiders. They've had a hard time doing that as well. Last night, Jimmy Butler did not attend a flight when they went on the road. There are several reports saying that they had a different practice schedule. Maybe this is why this has happened. Who really even knows the story right now? But here's what we know. No Jimmy Butler for the Miami Heat for their next two road games. He was suspended again on this next two-game road trip. The Heat has been trying to trade Butler, And they have a deadline coming up in February where they're going to have to make this happen. We know the Suns have been in play trying to acquire draft picks to make this happen as well. But Jimmy Butler, 2 more games of not being on the court with Miami. Al Golden, former head coach in college football at the University of Miami, is returning to the Bengals as defensive coordinator. He was linebackers coach with them back in 2020 and 2021. Not 1920. That'd be 100 years ago. That'd be too long. Joe Mixon of the Houston Texans had a fine reissued, this time for making comments about the referees. He went to social media to say how much BS it was and doesn't seem to really have any filter when it comes to this. But needless to say, Mixon's not even playing and getting fined for the referees based on last week. Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi says all options are on the table. The Titans have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. He met with the media yesterday, and certainly with several months to go before it all happens, he's not going to tip his hand as to who they like.
It's early. We just started. The first thing we're talking about is our roster, and then getting down to the Senior Bowl and the East-West actually first. So we're very early in those discussions.
You mentioned that all options are on the table. I imagine same thing in your eyes.
Yes, we're coming into this. I'm coming in with this an open mind. But we're going to evaluate every situation and make the best decision for us with that pick.
We're in the NBA last night, a battle of 2 potential finalists in the East and West. I mean, Houston's a little bit of a long shot, but man, they have looked fantastic. They beat the Cavs 109-108. Ime Udoka has done such a great job since heading over to Houston. Of course, he was let go by Boston for some indiscretions, as they say, several years ago. Udoka, not all that excited, by the way. I know they had a lead in this one, and certainly Cleveland came back. He talked about the outcome after the game.
I think we were not aggressive enough in the zone. We got in the middle a few times and had opportunities to look to score. Had got in the dunker or kickouts that were wide open and missed those. And it kind of bogged us down a little bit. Obviously, 39-point first quarter, 33-point third quarter. They went to zone to slow it down, and we needed to get stops to get out and run a little bit, and didn't really convert in transition, so it allowed them to sit in the zone a little bit. But got some decent looks. Obviously, Fred hit the 2 big threes. Jalen got some really good looks out of there as well, so you make those a little bit different, and maybe they don't stand as much, but credit to them. We weren't great against it and let them back in the game.
On the night where bench points, how important was your bench tonight?
Big. It felt like right from the beginning they came in and gave us some extra juice. Loved the physicality. Tari, Cam, Steven came in with where we were a little flat early, and kind of ramped it up obviously to get that 39-point first quarter. But overall, really good job by all of them. Jay Sean as well guarding, and we needed it tonight. Some guys were a little flat, and the bench gave us a good boost.
Meanwhile, the story of the first half of the NBA season has obviously been the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they continue to roll. Another win yesterday, 36-7 on the season, and the favorite on the FanDuel Sportsbook to win the MVP, it's clear cut. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Another 54-point performance last night, 123-114. Not going to hand him the MVP just yet. There's a long way to go, certainly, but SGA trying to live in the present as opposed to the future.
Yeah, I just try to stay in the moment. I try to be as aggressive and as intelligent as I can be in every moment. Make the right play and make the play that I'm comfortable making. And no matter the moment or the situation, I try not to waver from that. And it's been going well for me. It's something that I've had to learn. I guess you can say the hard way. But yeah, taking that approach has really helped me for sure.
Did it feel like 54?
I did not. I felt like I could have had a lot more, and I know it's going to sound very spoiled, but I feel like I didn't really have that great of a night. Left a few on the table, but there's room to improve, and that's a good thing.
So you told Gallo after the game, but you had a few more points tonight, but nothing special.
Yeah.
Why do you say that? Why is it nothing special?
I feel like I wasn't my best tonight, regardless of what the scoreboard says. I feel like I could have been better. Offensively, shot making a little bit, and then a couple of reads. But that comes with the game. You're not going to be perfect all the time. I feel like I've had better games this season, even though it didn't look like it on the score sheet. That's just me chasing growth as opposed to an outcome. That's what that comes from.
Right now, minus 600 on the FanDuel Sportsbook is SGA to win the MVP. That's a big favorite for the month of January. Also, last night, Brown and Tatum, they went off. They led the Celtics past the Clippers 117-113. Jalen had 25. Jason had 24. And also in the Mavs and Wolves game, Jaden Daniels had 27 points, and the Wolves outlasted the Mavs by a point, 115-114. All right, the storm is coming, as they say. St. John's wins again last night, and this time they beat Xavier, final 79-71. Expect St. John's to be a top 15 team in the country headed toward next week. Fans are starting to show up, and of course, the head man, Rick Pitino, knows all about success in the Big Apple.
It's all about winning in New York. If you win, they're going to show up, and we know that. And we're winning right now. We're bringing St. John's back to where it needs to be. It's a shame Lou's not alive. He'd be very proud of his team, the way they fight. But we really, really want to get St. John's back where it belongs. And we just keep winning, and that'll take care of itself.
A couple of notes in college basketball last night. The Gators beat South Carolina 70-69. Texas A&M beats Ole Miss 63-62. Kansas beats TCU 74-61. Gilbert McGregor's up next.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 8 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today, and stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Lots of NBA discussion to get to. We'll talk about that game last night with Cleveland and Houston, and also just how good is Oklahoma City. Let's bring in Gilbert McGregor of Sporting News. Getting ready for All-Star breaks coming up here in a couple of weeks, trade deadline as well, and then it's the march to the playoffs in the NBA. Gilbert, great to see you again. Headline stolen again yesterday for the Miami Heat. We found out that late afternoon, Jimmy Butler was not on a flight or did miss the flight. I mean, depending on how it's being phrased, it seems like the agent's talking, of course, and so is the team. So we really don't know here in the end. But the Heat found a way to suspend Jimmy Butler again. So this time it's 2 games for Jimmy Butler as they creep toward this trade deadline. Nothing is getting resolved anytime soon with this. And so I would ask you, Gilbert, is it just a matter of his contract, his age? I mean, usually things like this get fixed pretty quickly, but this one is not fixed, and now it's just super uncomfortable.
Yeah, Craig, the saga continues. You thought after that 7-game suspension that we would be past that, or at least a resolution would have been found, and we haven't found that resolution yet, and it's at an interesting spot. I do think that the contract has a large part with that because the Heat are kind of strapped, having to match the money for Jimmy Butler. I believe he's making $48 million this year and has a player option for $52 million next year. That's pretty difficult to match that salary, and obviously his preferred destination is Phoenix, and Bradley Beal is the chip that would make that work, but he has a no trade clause. So many different factors that play. The opportunity or the idea of getting another team involved adds more complication to the situation. And it doesn't seem like a resolution is anywhere in sight, but the more suspensions come in, the more it's clear that the saga is over, or his time there is over.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be soon. They can't keep just throwing him on the court and doing this, but was their initial thought process. It's a nightmare going on right now there. Not a nightmare in Houston. The Rockets are back. They win another big game yesterday, 109-108 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know they let Cleveland back in this game to a degree, but I think you just got to be impressed and say, I mean, look how far the Rockets have come. Gilbert, over a 2-year period, they were a laughing stock of the West 2 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, they're in a position to make a run.
Absolutely. And they got a little lucky last night as well. Darius Garland missing 2 of 3 free throws with a chance to win the game for Cleveland. And it's no laughing matter or nothing to scoff at the fact that the Rockets were able to beat this Cavs team that has been so dominant all season. Just last week, I was talking about how the Rockets have rebuilt the right way. They have a lot of young talent, and then anchored by some veterans in Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, and they're winning a lot of ball games. And I think it's time to take this Houston Rockets team seriously. They're second in the Western Conference, and if things shake in their favor, I can see them making a run similar to what the Celtics did in 2018, where they had a bunch of young guys who had never been in the moment before, but they just like playing with one another and enjoy seeing each other succeed.
Yeah, and that's what's been going on with Houston. It seems like the coaching is really good. The playing is really good as well. That's fair to say about Oklahoma City. They win against Utah. That's not a surprise, 123-114, but another staple performance from SGA, 54 points, 17 of 35 shooting, 17 from 18 at the free throw line. And right now, this guy is playing on another world. In fact, Gilbert, I know that Jokic and LeBron and some others and Embiid have won MVPs. I don't ever remember such a heavy favorite in the NBA in January. It seems like as long as Oklahoma City just plays okay the rest of the season, he's got the MVP locked up. It ain't even February yet.
Right. It's pretty incredible, Craig, when you put it that way, especially thinking about the odds for him to win the award at this stage of the season. And then to think about the fact that nobody would have ever predicted this to come when he was a late lottery pick some years ago, and now he's in Oklahoma City and is just transcending into superstardom right in front of our eyes. To come up short for MVP last year and to somehow come back even better than he was last season. He's definitely on a mission to lead this team to new heights, and also probably going to win MVP for the first time in his career. Just to think about the fact that he scored 54 points last night. When we look back, this will be one of those MVP moments that we will accredit him winning the award to. It certainly seems like it's just a straight path for him to win the award, especially if the Thunder were going to win 65 and maybe even 70 games. That's still in play for them.
It is. Now, as far as the NBA is concerned, I mean, I don't know if the NBA likes this or they don't like this, but certainly it appears as though we got a changing the guard in the NBA. I mean, you look at 3 of the top 4 teams, Oklahoma City, Cleveland, and Houston, and you could throw even Memphis in there. I mean, these are not big market teams. This is a surprise that these teams are within the top 5. But again, Gilbert, we also know that the NBA season is long. Some teams don't take the regular season as seriously as others, and there are a lot of teams on the outside looking in that can make a run. No question about that. Do you think that there is a changing of the guard, or is this just an aggressive regular season for Oklahoma City, Cleveland, Houston, Memphis?
It's an interesting balance of things, right? And I think when you look at a team like Oklahoma City, Cleveland, and even Boston kind of fits in this as well. One thing that most of these teams have in common is that they've built through the NBA draft. So a lot of homegrown talent on their team. I know Boston made some moves to put themselves over the top, and I could honestly see teams like OKC, Cleveland, and they have to a certain extent making some other trades to put themselves over the top. I know Donovan Mitchell isn't homegrown, and guys like Isaiah Hartenstein, even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander isn't technically homegrown talent, but it does kind of feel like the NBA is shifting to that type of thing. And when you talk about outsiders looking in, you look at Denver and you look at Milwaukee, anytime you have Nikola Jokic or Giannis Antetokounmpo on your roster, you have a chance to win and win big. And ultimately, stars drive where this league goes, and stars win championships. So at the end of the day, star power always rules out, but it's good to see, it's refreshing to see teams built through the draft and have that homegrown talent on their rosters.
Rare afternoon Eastern time games, global games going on in Paris. Wemby has been the star there. The Spurs are 3-point dogs today at Indiana, total of 230. Every time he touches the ball, he gets a big round of applause. I've been watching this, and he's like, all the discussion. I don't even know why any other team plays. They may as well make these exhibitions. But needless to say, they'll do it today, 2 o'clock Eastern, Gilbert. So you have something to watch this afternoon.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see it. It's the slumping Spurs versus the streaking Pacers, two teams who are in very different spots right now, but there's nothing like some home cooking, nothing like getting back home for the Spurs to maybe for Victor Wembanyama to get back on track. So maybe he'll have a big performance on deck, first of 2 games out in Paris for them. So this is maybe just what they needed to get back on track this season.
All right. And then finally tonight, the Celtics will take on the Lakers. Celtics 5-point favorites at LA. Any position on this game tonight? Certainly the Lakers are playing better, but do they have enough to beat one of the best teams in the league tonight?
I don't think so. It feels like the Celtics always get up for this rivalry game. They only play twice a year. National TV audience. I expect the Celtics to take care of business, especially because they rested a few guys last night.
All right. Well, Gilbert, also always great to catch up with you. Really appreciate it. And you and I will talk again next week. Thanks for coming on.
Sounds good, Craig.
Sound Off's up next.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, 2 teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 8 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today, and stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Part of the focus going into the AFC Championship are going to be the officials. It's just natural based on what we've seen with the Kansas City Chiefs this season. So we'll get into that and also let you hear from the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. Time now for the Sports Grid Sound Off. All right, let's begin with Patrick Mahomes, quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, a quarterback who has been no stranger to some really significant calls, I would say, fair to say. I mean, the Chiefs have been penalized just as much as things has worked out for them. So I really don't know where all this is coming from. But regardless, it seems as though, at least for the average person watching the games, at any time Mahomes is hit, a flag ensues. And that was the subject of a question that was asked to Mahomes about how he feels about the officiating going into the AFC Championship game.
As you look back through the year, as far as fair whistle, not a fair whistle, I mean, does it feel to you like you've gotten protection or anything like that from officials that's not around the rest of the quarterbacks in the league?
I don't feel that way. I mean, I just try to play football at the end of the day. The referees are doing their best to call the game as fair and as proper as they possibly can. And all you can do is go out there and play the game that you love as hard as you can and live with the results. And so for me, it's to go out there, play hard, try to do whatever I can to win the football game, and then live with the results based off my effort and the way that we played the game. And so I think that's what we preach here in Kansas City.
Does it feel any different for you as a veteran now, though? Did you eventually earn the benefit of the doubt at some point in your career, or has it been the same the whole time?
I haven't felt any different. You get new referees every year. You get new circumstances, and you never can really tell because every play is different. That's what makes the NFL so special. And so I feel like I've just continued to play the game, and I just try to win. And whatever happens, kind of happens.
Mahomes very careful with his words, as he should be, going into Sunday Night Football. Of course, we will watch it and see what happens on Sunday night, but Bills defensive players beware, fair to say. Meanwhile, on the side of the Buffalo Bills, not only are they playing for themselves, but they're playing for the city of Buffalo. Man, that city is desperate for that team to get back to a Super Bowl. And Josh Allen talked to the media about what really makes things so special, the snow, the cold. It's what the Bills are all about.
Does this team take on the persona of the city? And if so, what does that mean?
I think so. And it's kind of hard to put into words. But typically when people think of Buffalo, they think of what's going on right now, the snow and the cold, and you got to be pretty tough to be in a place like this. And we feel like we've got guys, in this locker room that maybe haven't gotten all the recognition that they deserve. Coming here on their last leg maybe of their career, and just coming here and trying to prove something to not just the world but to themselves. And I think that's pretty cool and pretty special in this locker room. It's such a tight-knit group. We hang so much around each other outside of the facility as well, and just a lot of love in this locker room, a lot of love in the city.
You guys have done such a week like this.
Say again?
What are the emotions of a week like this?
Again, I think it's maybe changed since I've gotten in the league, and early on it was maybe anxiousness and eagerness, and while that's maybe still there a little bit, but also gratefulness to be back in this situation of having a chance to play in the Super Bowl. But obviously you got to go put in the work and not cheat it, and put your best foot forward to give yourself a shot.
Buffalo's still a 1.5 underdog going into Sunday night. Meanwhile, where will the Chicago Bears be a year from now? They have a new head coach. His name is Ben Johnson, the former Lions offensive coordinator. He met with the media and discussed his formula to winning games.
Modern football in the NFL is quarterback driven. That is no secret. You can look at analytics. Right now, quarterback success is a higher predictor of winning and losing than turnover ratio, which it's been for 20 plus years. Okay, that's changed. So there's no doubt Caleb played a large component into my decision. He is a phenomenal talent that had, as many quarterbacks do, an up and down rookie year. Where I see my role is as a supporter of him. This offense will be calibrated with him in mind. We're going to build this thing. This is not simply a dropping of a previous playbook down on the table and starting there. Nope. We're ripping this thing down to the studs, and we're going to build it up with him first and foremost, and then with the pieces around him next.
Good interview yesterday, I thought, with Ben Johnson. Good introduction as well. All right, coming up next, the Farmers Insurance is underway. We'll check in on the golf course with Brady Kannon and get his view on the AFC and NFC championship games next on NewsWire.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 8 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today, and stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Each and every week we bring in Brady Kannon, of course, and he covers golf like nobody else here at SportsGrid. He's got you covered for this weekend's Farmers Insurance Open, which began yesterday and ends on Saturday, a rare golf tournament that gets out of the way of the NFL on Sunday. You won't have to worry about that, Brady, soon as the NFL comes to an end. And, of course, we've got all the big tournaments coming up, the Players, the Masters, etc. But, Brady, they are going to get underway here in about 15 minutes to start round two. And as you said during our break, and I'll repeat it, I think it's a good point, some of the future stars of golf are already at the top of the leaderboard, aren't they?
Yeah, Ludwig Gilbert, man, this guy is really something. I love this kid. They play two courses here at Torrey Pines. There's a north course and a south course. The south course is the one we're most familiar with. They play 3 out of the 4 rounds of this tournament on the south course. It's the one we've seen Tiger and Jon Rahm win a U.S. Open at. It is the much more difficult of the two. It plays about 2.5 strokes more difficult than the north course. Now, Oberg went nuts on the north course yesterday and shot a 63, and he is now trading at plus 175 to win this golf tournament. He was in the neighborhood of 9-1 prior to this tournament teeing off on Wednesday, now less than 2-1. But I wouldn't go so crazy on him just yet because he played the easier course. Now, when a guy goes so low, you know how it is, Craig. Oftentimes they will come back to earth the next day. And not only is he liable to come back to earth, he's also on the much more difficult course today. So I'm going to probably wait and see before I dive in for any in-tournament wagering. But rather, I would also look at guys that did really well on the difficult course on Wednesday. Hideki Matsuyama went low on Wednesday. Soon J.M. went low on Wednesday. Now they're going to go play the easier course, and who knows, they could shoot 63, 64, 65. So you're going to have a real shuffling of the deck here, I believe, after the end of today's action. And then going into Friday, Saturday, it'll be nothing but the more difficult South course. So I think we've got some golf left here before I would necessarily dive in as far as the in-game odds are concerned at this point.
Fair enough. Oberg, by the way, leads the field as we speak right now. They're going to get started here and tee off in about 15 minutes, but there is Oberg at 9 under par. I know not a lot of familiar names for most. Maybe Zach Johnson, the most familiar down there at 6 under par. Oberg is favored to win. Naturally, this is not unusual for a first day of golf. Whoever's leading is usually the favorite going into next day, but you can see Matsuyama is 6-1, followed by Sungjae Im, Danny Walker, Lee Hodges, and Kurt Kitayama at 35-1. So that's where we certainly stand there. All right, so Brady, let's move on from golf to what I think most people will be interested in, because we're running out of games in the NFL.
Yeah.
We've got two this weekend. Commanders on their road to what would be one of the bigger upsets to get to a Super Bowl. I've kind of correlated this a little bit, Brady, to when Joe Burrow took those Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl several years ago. It feels like we're maybe headed down the same path. The odds makers say no. Eagles now up to 6.5-point favorites, total of 47.5. It's been a magical run for the Lions, for the Commanders. Make no mistake about it, Brady, but they've won so many close games. Why can't they win another close one this weekend in Philadelphia?
Hey, well, first of all, congratulations to you who called the upset last week on this same show. I remember you said you think Washington's going to win outright, and bang, you cashed that ticket. I think that was in the neighborhood of plus 400 on the money line. I think they have a shot. Yeah, I mean, my heart tells me they're probably not going to win this game. That's certainly what the odds will tell us, what the odds makers are telling us. But, a lot has been made about, you talk about the road to get here. The road is for sure the case. They have played 3 games on the road in a row, and this will be their 4th straight game on the road. And looking back, if you go back to 2013, there have been 5 teams that made that run in the playoffs where they had played 4 road games in a row. And in that 4th road game, all 5 of those teams lost. So 0-5 straight up. However, only one of them lost by more than 7 points. So they didn't really get blown out. If you look at the 2013 San Francisco 49ers, they lost to Seattle. The 2015 Steelers lost to Denver. 2019 Titans lost to the Chiefs. 2021 San Francisco lost to the Rams. And then 2022 Dallas lost to San Francisco. 2 of those matchups were divisional matchups like we have here, the Eagles and the Commanders, right, in the same division. 2013, San Francisco lost to Seattle by 6. 2021, San Francisco lost to the Rams by 3. So I think when you have a division matchup like this, it even goes to a closer game more so than the other 3 games might tell you. So I don't think this 4th game in a row on the road is a huge deal. It might not mean it can win, but I don't think it goes into their favor or against their favor wholeheartedly as far as covering the number. And now that you add the layer of a division game on top of that, I think that lends itself to even a tighter contest here because of the familiarity with these 2 teams. So I think the number's spot on. I could see Washington losing by anywhere from 3 to 7 points, but double digits, I doubt it. I think the Commanders can keep it somewhat close.
Yeah, and look, the Commanders have played just some wild games this season where they've been up big and let teams come back. They've been down big and they come right back into it. I don't think there's any question this is going to be a closer game than last week. But when I picked Washington to win the NFC, Brady, 4 months ago on this network, I was laughed at. I was told it could never happen. But here we are. We're 1 step away. I guess I'm not laughing now about that. Nobody else should be too. All right. I want to take the Bills this week, Brady. I want to take the Bills plus 1.5 points. But so many times I've seen this movie before, and it's always the outcome. Bills are up 3 late. 4 minutes to go. Here comes Mahomes. They tie the game. They go to overtime. Josh Allen fumbles. Chiefs get it. They win. And we're just like, all right, on to the Super Bowl. Total of 47.5. I'm nothing against the Chiefs. I'm just overloaded on them by now. I'd like to see somebody else in the Super Bowl. And I don't know. Something tells me it's not going to happen. I'm going to be wrong again here.
I think you're in the majority that you're tired of this Chiefs team that's been to the Super Bowl 3 out of the last 5 years. But I also believe that there's a very strong chance that the storyline will change this year. I think it may be Buffalo's year. I think they're certainly the better team. And, I think if the odds makers were putting up a true line, they might make this game a pick'em, maybe even Buffalo is the favorite, but they would just be inundated with Chiefs money if they opened up KC as a dog. I think Buffalo is the better team here. I think they have the best chance that we've seen of all these matchups I think Kansas City is certainly not as good as we've seen them in years past. I mean, if they would have been up against a real offense like the Buffalo Bills last week, I think they would have lost last week. The Texans really dominated that game between the 20s, but just couldn't score. And I think the Chiefs defense looked a little better than it really is because that offensive line was pretty weak for the Texans combined with their offense being weak. But no, I think this is the year that Buffalo has a great shot. They were really, to kind of use a horse racing term, they were kind of the team I keyed. I played a 2-team teaser, and I wanted to get Buffalo onto the other side of 7, and in this case, even onto the other side of 8. So plus 8.5 with a 2-point spread, which you can find out there. By the way, money has come in on Buffalo a little bit today. There's a lot more 1.5s out there than there were on Wednesday. And there's also, very few 6.5s and even a 5.5 out there on the Eagles. So money coming in on the underdogs today, it looks like early. But I really wanted to get Buffalo to a key number. I've got them at plus 8.5 on a teaser. And rather than taking Philadelphia down, I took Washington up to plus 12.5 because, like I said earlier, I think this is a close game. I'm not sure if Washington will win, but I don't think they'll lose by double digits. And boy, Craig, you and I think a lot of people across this country would be thrilled with a Washington-Buffalo Super Bowl. I don't know if we're going to get it, but that would be fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be great. Total would be 50. It'd be a fantastic game, hopefully. Yeah. By the way, Eagles are still the favorites to win the Super Bowl here. I think maybe some of the best betting here is take whoever you want to win the AFC because the AFC is going to be favored in the Super Bowl. I don't care who they play, Buffalo or KC, -2, -3. That's what it's going to be. All right, Brady, thanks again for catching up. We'll talk soon.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 8 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today, and stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Of course, lots happening in the NFL, college basketball, and the NBA as well. Any updates for you, we'll do it here on the show. Naturally, also, don't forget this weekend, for those of you looking for exclusive coverage of the AFC and NFC Championship game, you can keep it locked right here to SportsGrid Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. We have you covered with all of our in-game live programming. And for those who are curious, indeed, yes, we are headed to the Super Bowl in New Orleans coming up in less than 2.5 weeks from now. So for more information on that, our coverage, and some new shows, by the way, coming your way here on SportsGrid, you could just download the SportsGrid app. It's available for both iOS and Android. You can scan it with your QR code right there. Take out your phone and scan that thing right there. SportsGrid app available for free, iOS and Android. News, notes, information, picks against the spread, and all of our programming here on the network. To recap some of our top stories here on the show, the Jacksonville Jaguars parted ways with their head coach Doug Peterson not too long ago. How this ended up happening with their general manager still remains to be seen, but the owner of the Jaguars came crashing down yesterday with this announcement. Jags fire their general manager, Trent Baalke. Baalke, who did a nice job scouting for the Jaguars through the years. In fact, several of their draft picks ended up not just playing, but playing at a high level in the NFL, did not really equate to a lot of wins and losses. So Baalke is out. He was in the mix as far as interviewing some of the coaches. In fact, Liam Cohen is the offensive coordinator of currently the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Cohen pulled out of the running for the Bucs and went back to Tampa Bay and signed a long-term extension. And then this announcement came out about the firing. No word if it's correlated or not. There's some speculating as to whether or not coaches want to be involved with friendships, relationships, and even the decision-making of the general managers in the NFL. So a story that we'll have to watch for the future. Meanwhile, the story is an open and shut case. Aaron Glenn is coming home to East Rutherford as the Jets have hired their next head coach. Aaron Glenn, former defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, is now the head coach of the New York Jets. Glenn, a nice run in Detroit. And the Lions, by the way, under Dan Campbell, now searching for a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator as Glenn takes the helm with the Jets. I'm sure I believe the press conference, if I'm not mistaken, is today. So we'll get some sound, audio, and video. We'll bring that to you on tomorrow's show here on NewsWire. Tom Brady apparently is involved in some of the decision-making with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's a limited partner, meaning about 5% or less ownership in the Raiders, and maybe not a coincidence that a former teammate of his at Michigan and a former staff member with Tampa Bay is now the new GM of the Raiders. John Spytek is his name, and he'll make all the decisions, or at least make some of the decisions moving forward. The Davis family clearly very involved in a lot of those decisions as well. So Spytek is the GM. Now he will hire a new head coach, and in addition, have to find a new quarterback. Naturally, the Raiders have struggled since Derek Carr has moved on with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, probably needing to use that first-round pick on a quarterback. So we'll see who they end up taking, if indeed that is the route that they decide to go. Meanwhile, what's the next route for Jimmy Butler with the Miami Heat? Jimmy Butler suspended again, folks. A 7-game suspension, comes back for 2 games, and is now going to be suspended for the Miami Heat's next 2 road games. With the trade deadline coming up in early February, certainly there's a chance that Butler could end up moving. But as of right now, because of a missed flight, apparently, Butler is staying home in South Florida and will not be with the Heat as they play their next 2 road games. In fact, there's an event that Jimmy Butler has scheduled for this weekend as well. I wonder if he'll end up being at that. Kind of weird that he has an event at the same time the Heat's playing games. But needless to say, Butler not on the court next 2 games. They have a week to get a deal done. Trade deadline coming up in that first week of February. Al Golden is returning to the Cincinnati Bengals. He's going to be their defensive coordinator. The former head coach in college football was the linebackers coach for Cincinnati in 20 and 2021. Joe Mixon was fined by the National Football League for comments about the refs. It was taken away and then reissued for some actual comments about the refs. Mixon was not happy with the outcome of that game last week between Kansas City and Houston because of some of the calls that were made. Naturally, one of the hits on the quarterback. I think we all probably had an issue with that as well, but we're not playing in the NFL. Mixon can't be talking about the refs that way. Titans right now trying to figure out who their number 1 pick in the draft is going to be. Still have the Senior Bowl, still have the Combine, still a long way to go before this thing is figured out. But that is the task at hand for General Manager Mike Borgonzi. He is the GM right now of the Tennessee Titans, and no decision has clearly been made, although it is expected either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward are taken, but Borgonzi is not tipping his hand just yet.
It's early. We just started. The first thing we're talking about is our roster, and then getting down to the Senior Bowl and the East-West actually first. So we're very early in those discussions.
You mentioned that all options are on the table. I imagine same thing in your eyes.
Yes, we're coming into this. I'm coming in with this an open mind. But we're going to evaluate every situation and make the best decision for us with that pick.
I think right now the Tennessee Titans have the best position of anyone in the NFL draft, but they got to make the right call this time. Got to make sure that they get a good quarterback for the future. All right, real quick, let's get to the NBA results last night. Houston beats Cleveland 109-108. That was the final there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, his MVP season continues. 54 points last night, 123-114. Oklahoma City beats Utah. And in the Boston-LA game, man, was this a fun one. Overtime, 117-113. Boston ends up taking it. Jaylen Brown at 25 points. Jason Tatum added 24. Tatum says still got to clean some things up moving forward.
We got to clean some things up. But just our will to win, will to figure it out. Rather learn from a win than learn from a loss for sure.
Jason, what was your first impressions of this arena after playing in it for the first time?
It was cool. Big ass screen. That's what I really noticed at first.
So when you look at your time with Tilo, Team USA, and everything, what is it about his team that you've learned that just they play so hard despite being down so many guys?
Yeah, they're super well coached. Tilo is one of the best coaches in this league, and obviously he plays, so he has a great feel for the game, what it's like to be an NBA player, and he knows how to get guys to buy in.
Pharrell Coast to Coast has a preview of all the NBA games tonight coming up at 3 o'clock Eastern. When we return next, are you interested in game-used dirt from a football game? How about game-used ice? Is that a thing? Hey, never.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 8 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today, and stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on the Sports Grid. As we get ready to wrap up the show, what would you pay for a game-used item if you're in Philadelphia? We'll ask that question and answer it. And also, how much are you willing to bet on Saquon Barkley's rushing prop? You may be shocked as to what it is going into the NFC Championship game on Sunday. That and a whole lot more as we wrap up with some last licks. Well, let's be real here. Legally betting on sports, we're talking about what, the last 5-6 years where you could bet on player props, maybe about 6 years. I think that's probably fair. And so really, historically speaking, you could do this in the illegal offshore market for online, as 10, 20, 30 years as far as that's concerned. But legally, this is an all-time number that has been set on FanDuel for this weekend for Saquon Barkley's rushing yards prop. Let me be clear, his rushing yards prop. His number this week, folks, usually these don't hit 100, is 130.5. That is the single highest rushing prop number in the history of, I'm fair to say, legalized sports betting. Now, look, I don't know what Emmitt Smith's numbers were back in the 1990s. The internet came on, and who knows what was doing what online. I mean, it could have been higher than this if you consider Thurman Thomas and those Super Bowl days. But as far as legalized sports betting, yeah. I mean, in order to bet on this, you have to kind of believe that Philly's going to win. If you're going over, you have to believe Philly's going to win. If you think Washington's going to win, you don't do this. Because I don't think there's any chance that Philly wins with Barkley going like 88 yards. Like, you got to believe that that's a Philly win. What else could you do? I mean, my guess is you could probably, the only way you can get plus money is betting on him to rush for 175 yards. I mean, that's kind of crazy this week. But Barkley's been fantastic. He has basically carried the Eagles all the way through the season, with or without Jalen Hurts, all the way through the NFC Championship game. We'll see if Washington is able to stop him this week. Speaking of which, it was a historical day for the Eagles last week. Remember, they were not supposed to be playing at home this week in the NFC Championship game. That was supposed to be Detroit. But Washington upended Detroit on the road, and that gave Philly a home game this week. Now, how about their game last week where they played against the Rams? You remember watching that game? It wasn't completely the snow games of the past where you couldn't see anything. But yes, there was a lot of snow on the field. Philadelphia Eagles fans, if you're interested, and I can't believe that you would be, you can buy snow from the game for $50. We've seen this in sports before. Dirt from an infield, a piece of hardwood from a basketball court. But there is this company that's actually selling little, buckets of snow that I guess that they took from the field. How? I don't know. Put them in a freezer. How? I don't know. And they're going to sell them to you. How can these possibly stay cold? Do they sell them and send them in some sort of like freezer pack? And what are you going to do with this thing? Are you just going to keep it in the freezer forever? Because that's all you can do. Once you take it out, it's done. It's melted. Like this to me should be $5. $50 to pay for this? No thanks. I'll pass. All right, Topps is making a lot of news lately, right? Like with all of these Paul Skeens, stuff coming out, and all of the, their 2025 Baseball Series 1 coming out as well. But how about this? This is a really rare autograph item that is available and going to be really hard to get, clearly, pack pulled clearly. Robert Oppenheimer's first ever autographed card is now available via Topps. Now, to be clear, it's a really, really difficult signature to find. This was a cut signature, which you can pull in a pack. As you can see there, it actually looks like a sticky note, doesn't it? Was this on a yellow sticky? It kind of looks yellow there. Maybe it is. Oppenheimer, one of the big movies of last year, maybe the biggest movie of last year. We'll see if anybody pulls this thing. I don't have a price on this yet. Like, somebody asked me what Paul Skeens 1-of-1 jersey patch card, which we talked about a couple of days ago, and I thought it was like $150,000, $200,000. What would this be worth? I'm going to say 50 grand, 40 grand, something like that. I don't know. Is it that rare? I guess so. All right, that'll do it for the show. We've had a lot today. Thanks again to Gilbert McGregor of Sporting News. Thanks again to Brady Kannon for coming on, talking some football and some golf as well. Of course, for our director, Luke, and my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Keep it right here, because Smiley's up next with the latest golf updates from the Farmers Insurance Open. And then Pharrell is live, coast to coast, 3 o'clock Eastern, followed by Game Time Decisions in-game live game day and sports rage tonight. Gabe with the latest in the NHL, the NBA, and some college hoops as well. We've got a Football Friday back with you tomorrow here on the show. My final look with you guys on the AFC and NFC championship. Maybe I'll throw out some picks. It's been a good run for me too. See you tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.